Hey guys, Pete here. This time I'm back in the garage working on two wheels. Behind me here, this is my 2008 Aprilia Shiver. Got this bike a few years ago and I actually quite like this bike. Done a lot of touring on it. Do some sealed road surfaces, some gravel roads. It's a pretty good bike all around. I like the looks, I like the power, has a V-twin engine. The only thing that I don't like about it is the suspension. When I first got it, the front forks were leaking, so I took it to the Aprilia dealer. They rebuilt the forks, but it's never really to my liking. The suspension, it's non-adjustable. It's okay for the road. For gravel surfaces, it's not that great at all. So I've kind of been looking for something that I can upgrade it with. The good thing is that during these years when Aprilia made the Shiver 750, they also made the Dorsoduro 750. And the Dorsoduro, it is more of a supermoto type of bike, but it has a lot of similarities with the Shiver. It has the same frame, same engine and transmission, same wheels, same brakes. What does differ? The bodywork differs a lot, the suspension differs, and the gearing is a little bit different as well. So what I'm going to end up doing is taking the suspension off my Shiver, and I'm going to be putting the suspension off a 2016 Dorsoduro in place. As I say, it's a complete swap, so I'm going to be swapping out the forks. Forks are a little bit longer, they're made by a different manufacturer, and they're dual adjustable. I have the rear shock. The rear shock's also a little bit longer, and the rear swing arm, which is also a little bit longer. So all told, you'll probably gain some height, a little bit of travel, but a full adjustability. I've already done this once. This is my 1989 Honda CB1. It's a 400cc four-cylinder. It was actually my first bike. And as a beginner bike, it comes out pretty modest. It has pretty soft suspension, no adjustment. So what I ended up doing is I took the forks off of a Honda VTR 1000. They were the same 41mm forks. Took that, replaced the stock CB1 forks with these ones. They're dual adjustable, and I included the VTR 1000 wheel, which actually has dual disc brakes. So I used the forks, the wheel, the brakes off of the VTR 1000 and adapted it to my CB1. And now it rides really, really well. And that's because I have that double adjustable and I was able to adjust it to my liking. So I'm hoping that I can do the same thing with my Shiver, is go and put the Dorsoduro suspension on it, and since it's adjustable, I can then adjust it to my liking and just make it a little bit more of a pleasure to ride. So stay tuned. I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that, and I'll actually have the side-by-side comparison of the front forks, the rear shock, the rear swing arms, so that you can actually see the differences. Here's a look at the forks side by side. It took me about an hour to remove the Shiver forks. I didn't use any special tools, and I just took my time. It's actually pretty straightforward even if you haven't removed any forks before. So you can see here the height difference. And the height difference is actually in the fork travel. If you look at the bottom of the forks, you can see here that this is where all the difference is in the forks. The upper stanchions actually are the same length. I measured them, they're about 21¼ each. The lengths of the Shiver forks are about 31½ inches, about 795 mils. And the Dorsoduro forks are 34 inches, about 860 mils. I may be off by a little bit, but that's the rough dimensions of them. Otherwise, they're pretty similar. You can see here that the Dorsoduro ones do have some adjustability on the top where the Shivers do not. This lower mount you can see here that there's a little bit of a difference. The Shiver has the cutout on the side, and they have the mounting bolts on the back. Whereas with the Dorsoduro ones, the clamping bolts are on the front. Now, the Dorsoduro also has a wider pattern up here for the headlight mount. So it has a wider pattern, and that accommodates that upper fender as well. Whereas the Shiver has a narrower pattern, and it doesn't have that fender. If you're not looking to use the fender, you can easily just use this one and swap over all the forks. I'm actually going to use the Dorsoduro fender, so I'm going to be using this upper triple tree as it is. As I mentioned earlier, the rims and the brakes are the same between the two models, so you can see here. There's the mounting parts for the brakes, there's the mounting for the fender, and they are the same between the Shiver and the Dorsoduro. Only difference here is that the Dorsoduro has the ABS sensor. I don't have that on my bike, so I'm going to be deleting that. But other than that, everything will bolt on. They even have the same bearings, same length steering tube, so it should mount right up. If you have the whole set, no worries. If you don't have the whole set, you can just actually use the forks and slide them into your existing triple trees. Okay, so here's the final product of the headlight on. This is the Shiver headlight on the Dorsoduro forks. It wasn't as easy as I thought it might be. Not really a surprise when you're mixing and matching parts, but they are definitely, you have to mount it a slightly different way. So as you can see, here's the Shiver headlight. This piece down here, that's to mount that upper fender for the Dorsoduro. That's a Dorsoduro part, and so are the forks and the lower triples. And there's the bolt. So the whole bottom bolts together, no problem. Now up at the top, I was going to use the Shiver upper, but I ended up using the Dorsoduro because it is slightly different shape, just marginally. You have to use the upper Dorsoduro as long as the lower one. But this is the Shiver risers, Shiver handlebars, everything there is Shiver. And what I ended up doing is rising up this upper piece. It used to sit about 1/4 inch lower. So I put a spacer in between the lock nut for the steering and this upper triple tree. Mounted this so it's a little bit 1/4 inch higher. That gives you enough room to mount the Shiver headlight in there, because the Dorsoduro headlight apparently is a little bit smaller. So you can use the bottom bolt, bolts right in. You need some longer bolts up at the top, but they bolt right into the factory locations right there and there. So there's one there, there's another one there. That bolts right in, everything bolts right in. It's kind of crowded. It'll take you a little while to do it. It actually took me just as long to mount the headlight as it did to take everything apart and put the Dorsoduro forks on. So that took me maybe 2 hours, and it probably took me at least 2 hours to do the headlight. But now that you guys know what to do, it shouldn't take you as long, but it is a little bit tricky. And if you're going to be changing out headlights afterwards, yeah, it's there, it works. It's just really, really crowded, and it's hard to reach the bolts the way that it's done. But no problem, it fits. So we're going to continue on with the rest of the installation. Okay, so that's it for this video. This is how it's going to look. It's not done because the brake lines are too short. These are still the Shiver brake lines, and since the forks are 2.5 inches longer, the brake lines need to be longer. So I've ordered some Dorsoduro longer brake lines, and whenever they come in, I'll finish up the front. But front's done for right now, not rideable obviously, but that's fine because I'm going to go into the back. So in the next video, you'll see me working on the back where I'll be replacing the rear swing arm, the rear shock, and while I'm there, I'm probably going to do the chain and sprockets as well. Okay, see you next time, guys. Bye.